When evening came, Jesus arrived with the 12. And while they were reclining at the table eating, he said, "I tell you the truth. One of you will betray me, one who is eating with me." They were saddened, and one by one they said to him, "Surely not I." "It is one of the 12, he replied, "one who dips bread into the bowl with me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born." While they were eating, Jesus took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take it, this is my body." Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, and they all drank from it. "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many," he said to them. "I tell you the truth, I will not drink again of the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it anew in the kingdom of God." This is me in the Auld Kirk, sitting on a pew, and that's unusual for me. And even though it's a Sunday morning, I'm back here on my own. There's not a soul here. So that also is surreal. But I thought I would spend today maybe just breaking away from the continuity of Mark and jump to near the end of Mark. Because in the next few weeks, we will be celebrating Easter. But even that's going to be different because as a congregation, as churches right across the land, we're not going to be gathered together, or certainly not in person. And I had a plan this particular Easter to have an open-air communion service at the top of Castle Hill. That would have been fun. And I've had open-air communion services before in different parishes in different parts of Scotland. And there is something there is something wonderful about that occasion, being outside, being in the elements, being with one another and sharing the blood and the bread of Christ. Now, again, I am talking to people, I'm thinking I'm talking to people who don't really have much of a church connection. Well, that's my audience, and that's the audience I'm very comfortable with. So you might not know about bread and wine and the symbolism of a broken body. It's a wee bit difficult to explain in a few minutes, but I'll tell you a story. And some of my friends from the congregation have heard this story, but I think of all the sermons that I've ever preached, this must be one of my favourite, or not my favourite, maybe the most profound. Because, and here's my serious face, it was the one day, the one occasion that I felt the presence of God. See, here's the story. Way back when I was at university, first time round in Edinburgh, studying theology, I was also a candidate for the Church of Scotland ministry. So part of that commitment to the church to be a future minister meant not only had I to sit a theology degree at the end of the course, but I had to do church stuff through the week. And one of my commitments was to work with a minister in Edinburgh on a Wednesday afternoon from about 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So about 4 hours per week, plus Sunday stuff. That was my commitment to preparing for the church as a student. John was the minister, and just a wonderful guy. I learned so much from John. And if he's listening, hello, John. So John said to me one day, I think maybe at the weekend after a church service, he said, "Look, why don't you this Wednesday come with me and we'll do some home communions?" So that is taking bread and wine round to the housebound, round to those who can't leave their homes. Obviously, I had never even been involved in a home communion before. I had no idea what it entailed. But he said to me, we'll go and visit two families, two couples, who haven't been to the church for a while. Both couples would have been in their 80s at the time. And he said to me, look, I will phone up, I will make arrangements to meet with them on Wednesday afternoon. You come with me and just observe, just get an idea of what's involved. So I met John at the church at 2:00 on the Wednesday, and we walked to the first house, which was only about 5 minutes or so away. And we rang the bell, and nobody answered. And a neighbour, the next door neighbour, came out of the door, and he said, oh, they've just gone away. They've gone to Asda. Okay, so we then walked a wee bit further, about another 10 minutes, to the next house. And this is a true story. As we were approaching the door, we heard this cooey from a car driver with the window down. And it was the guy that we were going to visit. And he was just driving away, and he gave us a wave. And we gave him a wave back. How strange. We discovered later that he had forgotten as well. And he was just going out, because it was a lovely day, he just decided to go for a run, take his wife for a run. And so, what was going through my mind? The two couples that we had arranged to see were no longer, available to see. They'd gone away and done their own thing. So I'm thinking, that's an afternoon off. I'm away back home, rock and roll. But John then said, you know what, seeing I've got the wine and the bread and we're in this particular street, there's another couple. I haven't seen them forever. He said, let's go and knock on their door. Even if we just say hello, good morning, or good afternoon, of course, at that time. So we went to the house. He rang the bell. And after a moment, less than a minute, the door was answered by a man in his 80s, I would say, with a tie on and a peenie, an apron on in his front, and his shirt sleeves were rolled up. And he was delighted to see John. He didn't know me from Adam, because I had never met him before. But he looked a bit flustered. He said, well, John, it's great to see you. I was introduced. Nice to see you as well, he said. He said, I'm just in the middle of washing up. He was washing the dishes, hence the apron, the peenie. So he said, come in. He said, but, you just have to take us as you find us. So we went into his house and taken through to the sitting room. And in the sitting room was his wife. Now, his wife was housebound and wheelchair-bound. Now, I can't quite recall if she was sitting in her wheelchair or sitting on the couch. But what I do recall is the telly is on in the background, and there is a table in front of Jean, the wife, and on the table there is a half-finished cup of tea and a plate of the rind, the remains of the rind of a bit of bacon, and a half-finished fried egg, and tomato sauce. There was a blob of tomato sauce on the plate. And there was tomato sauce. The bottle of tomato sauce was on the table with the teapot. And now, I think the man was also called John. This can get a bit complicated because we're now talking about two Johns. But John the man and John the minister, that's how I will differentiate them. So John the man had taken us through to the sitting room and met Jean, introduced me to Jean. And he was full of apologies. He said, oh, I'm really, really sorry. Look at the state of the place. Let me tidy up and I'll go and make you a cup of tea. And John said, the minister, he said, well, I'd be quite happy to have a wee home communion. Would you like that? And John the man said, yes, but let me tidy up first. Let me put the dirty dishes away and remove the tomato sauce and the teapot and the dirty cups. And John said, no, leave them. Leave them. And they were left on the table. And I pulled up two seats. There were other seats, pulled them up close to the couch. And John the man sat beside his wife, Jean, with his peenie still on. John, the minister, took from his bag a cup, and he poured some wine into it, and a piece of bread, which he placed on a plate. And he laid the cup, and he laid the plate beside the dirty dishes on the table, beside the tomato sauce, beside the teapot, beside the 2 mugs of half-finished tea. And then he had communion. Communion is a symbol of the broken body of Jesus. The bread standing for his body, the wine representing his blood. And round that table, with the dirty dishes, and the TV still on, but with the volume turned down, Holy Communion was celebrated. It took 10 minutes. 10 minutes. But at one stage, the strangest thing, and I've shared this with people before, there was just a moment of silence. John broke the bread. But before he distributed the bread round the rest of us, he had a moment's silence. And it was a silence that seemed to go on for an eternity. Not an uncomfortable silence, far from it. Far from it. I felt, because I can't speak for the rest, but I felt as if I was having an out-of-body experience. Among the clutter and the debris and the dirt and the mess, we were celebrating something holy. But we needed the mess. We needed the clutter for it to make sense. And that's when I felt as if I was in the presence of God. I can't describe it any better than that. And even that doesn't give it justice. But it was one of those occasions where the hair on the back of my head just seemed to move, and there was a kind of a tingling down my spine. And I had my eyes closed during that moment of silence. And I can remember very clearly, I don't want to open them. I don't want to open my eyes. I want to be in this moment. But even when I did open my eyes, there was still that presence. There were 4 adults round that table, but there was something else there as well, and that was God. And that's how I see it. And I do not offer an explanation, but there was God, and I'm happy with that.